My name is Jack Katz, and I'm a graphic novelist and painter and teacher. And I've been drawing since I was almost 2 years old. For the most part, it was on the walls, and this was in Canada. And because of that, we had to move twice because I couldn't stop drawing. And I drew figures at that time. Don't ask me how, don't ask me why. It's either a gift or a curse. It's either comes from an imagination or an abomination. However, that's what it is. As you know, I lived in the reference departments of in Canada and the United States. And I saw for the first time these friezes, and here was the Battle of Hastings on this long scale. And it showed a horse on its side, a sword, the soldiers with the crosses and stuff like that. And I said, yeah, this is an extended way of doing this. And I went nuts because everything I was trying to realize how Foster was doing, I said, my God, this is a genius. I still consider him the best of all of us. There was something about what he did. He was, in music you would call it or Beethoven or something like that. He did something that was unusual. And he brought to life the animals. Industrial art. Okay, so I met Peter Marisi. He became a Pam in the comics, and Al Toth. And I was extremely sickly. I had to work after class because I worked for the store there. It was called Garber's. And it was interesting. I met a lot of people there, very good people, young kids. But basically, by that time, I was involved in doing my comics. I had to make a living, you know.
So you went to
And then Kingfisher Syndicate, and that's where I met Joe Musil. And by the way, it was wonderful because the minute I went there, I was hired, right then, the same day. He took a look at my work, he realized, you know. It was a beautiful time. It was something you can't explain. It was a childhood in which I met the greats. You know, Norman Rockwell, Dean Cornwell, you had to be there. Yeah, we were all there. I was a so-called correction man. I worked for 5 years, from 46 to 51. And by the time I was 15, I got a chance doing, what was it? Archie, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You know, and Bullet Man and Bullet Dog and Bullet Girl. Yeah. You know, should have stayed with Bullet Dog. Go ahead. Let me see. I got a job at Kingfisher Syndicate. I had done a daily. I was doing a daily just to try to get in to the business. And I met C.C. Beck. I got to meet Alex Raymond when I was 13 years old. And I had 104 fever, but I just had to be, my goodness, Flash Gordon. I thought about 3 people on another planet. My goodness, what's going on here? So, and of course, the person who I was, to this day, there was nothing like Hal Foster. Prince Valiant was an anchor-hocking card, actually. It's like 10 seconds before the action, 10 seconds after. But Tarzan was something else. And the one who kept pushing him, and we talked about this, by the way, was Burroughs himself. And he said it had to be alive. The drawing had to be alive. And that's what it's all about, is putting life into a black and white drawing. The imagery has to reflect that. You put in the super quintessence of every action if you can make the drawing live. And that's what it's all about, breathing life into black and white drawing. And basically, I was what is known as a production man. I had to keep turning this stuff out. when I was working for Jack Kirby. He says, here, take these 6 pages. This guy's the hero, take this there. I said, well, who's doing this story? He says, it doesn't matter, you just put him in. And so I put him in. It's just, it is something, it is unlike anything you can imagine. It's factory work. It's to make money. See? And I'll never forget when I was working for Jack Kirby on what was it, 59th Street. And I was doing the penciling. So Jack sees that I'm putting anatomy underneath the figures to see how the wrinkles would go. He said, what are you doing? I said, I want to make sure that they look real. He says, for God's sake, forget it. So when Mort Meskin had a chance to ink my stuff, he took a look at it and he said, I want to ink. He says, I don't want to think. So I've been an anomaly no matter what I've done. But you know, when I was 13, I was such a good artist that my father brought me to Eisner and Iger. You remember? You know?
Yes.
Okay. And they looked at the stuff. Lou Fine said, my God, this kid is great. And then, of course, Mort Meskin got up there and he said, you can't do that because child labor. So I didn't get a chance to work for Eisner and Iger at the age of 13. God, I could have kept the whole family going at about $4 a page, which is what I was paid eventually for Bullet Man, Bullet Dog, and Bullet Girl. Oh my God. Eisner and Iger. There was a group for you. Jerry was the strangest. I'm going to talk about one thing. Lou Trackus and I, we had to move his place. So one day Jerry says, whatever you do, don't open up any of the drawers from my bureaus. So Lou Trackus, he opens the thing. And out comes about 10,000 condoms. So Jerry was, and yet Will Eisner and they had this business together. Lou Fine was part of that thing. I think they were doing jumbo comics and things like that. And there was another factory. It was looser, much looser. It just was more like confetti. And I did meet one of the best artists that I'd ever met. And we really bonded, but he was a young man, he was black. Matt Baker. And my heavens, Matt and I, we really got along. And it's so hard to even describe this guy. He was a poem of a human being. There was something about, he had a gentleness, and sometimes we would go to eat a place where the cockroaches would walk over the hamburger meat, but yet Matt, and I could see he had a difficult time breathing, and I can't believe somebody so young and so beautiful could be taken from us. Yeah, I did some pencils and stuff like that, but it never really. Do you know, Quality Comics was amazing. It was right next to the Chrysler Building. Lou Fine was there, and what else? Oh, there were just so many. Basically, Lou decided that, and I remember when Lou Fine got $16 a page. I was making $4 a page, for God's sakes. I said, this is manna from heaven. This is an old story. It's to get into the business, you have to do almost everything, you know. Anyhow, yeah, it's one of my stories, and I did the inking on that as well. It's terrible inking. There we go. Okay. Oh my heavens, this is really back a billion years. My heavens. Let me explain. I have to explain how this worked. This is factory work. You know, it's just like, yeah, I started in the business when I was 15 years old.
How about this one?
Oh, that is, gee whiz, what the heck was that? Yeah, The Bride of Death. Yeah, that's interesting. Oh my God, that's it. I'm done. So, I just can't remember. It's just, I know I did it. I think somebody else inked it. I'm not sure. Yeah. Look at the guy inside talk about imagination. My heavens. Oh, yeah. Oh, geez, sorry, man. This is when I got a job with Jack Kirby, and he took a look at the stuff, and Joe Simon took a look at it. He said, look at the imagery." Saying, "Imagery, my foot. I need to get to work." At Jack's place, did you ever hear Marvin Stein? No, okay. Marvy comes in at 9:30 at night, and he says to me, "Did Jack leave me anything?" I said, "Yes, he did." He said, "You know, it's 9:30." He says, "It's so dark." I said, "You know, it was morning." To give you an idea how trapped we were. And I said, "It's nighttime." He says, "Oh yeah." So Jack leaves him 3 covers and 3 stories. He says, "That's all right, I'll have it done." Well, but he starts to work on the stuff, and he left it for Jack. He accomplished everything. The stories were 10 pages or something like that, each one. And he didn't use pencils. He didn't use the outline of the pages. Guess what? He knew exactly where the lettering would go, and he did the whole thing in his head. Well, Joe, when I got there, immediately they saw my stuff was pretty classic, you know, and so I got a job doing historical stuff, you know, or hysterical stuff, and I have a photographic memory, evidently, and so I was easy. I did Helen of Troy. I did you just name it. I think I took some pictures of some of the stuff there, and so it was between me and Joe Maneely. Occasionally, I would sit in on that, and they knew that my head was not with them, you know, and I became very, very discouraged about everything. I even had my wife come in to pick up the scripts, and it just, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be part of it because I wasn't. I was out to try to describe what I had been living with all my life. I can shut my eyes now and I can see that amorphous phantasmagorical convolutions. I mean, it never leaves me. See now, where's my story? Charles Atlas. My goodness. When his body fell apart, it was incredible. Yes. I think this is mine, believe it or not. Here it is. This is about the sharpshooter, and look at that hand. Huh? Okay. This was done for Atlas a billion years ago. My goodness. My heavens, you're right. And I don't know if I did the inking on this. I'm not sure. Yeah, there it is. Okay. And let's see what else is in here. But this is a preparation for it. So I had to put my figures in such a way so they would stay in this business. I used to love not to put I did it here, of course, didn't like cutting off, the people. And so here he is with he's a gunslinger, whatever that means. And there's his spurs and everything. And here he goes around shooting and shooting and shooting. It was a pretty violent story, I can tell you that. The shooter gets killed by somebody else, and I made him as ugly as possible. And he rides off. And look at those horses. Isn't that nice? My goodness. Painting is a special place and a special space. It's unlike anything that had ever been done before. It's unique to in itself. It's like a singular mind, a unique product. It's an art form in which one word could equal a billion paintings, like belief or spiritual understandings or fear or yearning or something like that. On the other hand, a picture can go just so far within the content of the material that these people are wearing. And I have all these couples together in the street, and there's a conviviality between them, and an understanding between them that they belong to each other, each of the groups. I am an American artist, and I loved Henry and also John Sloan. They depicted America during the Depression, which I lived through. Here's the deal. In one painting, you could put in the super quintessence of the action and the life expression of the moment, if you can do it properly, and yet make it a construction of that square. Well, I enjoyed painting because I had studied a lot of the masters. I wanted to see if I could tell a story in a painting. If you look at my paintings, each one of them is a story. They're not just ordinary paintings. What is unusual about this particular painting, most of the people here involved in this convolution are composing everything from color to the designing to keeping it a single the space. But what's unusual about this is I had the deadest color in here. If you that TV it's not real. It's unnatural, no matter how they try to imitate it. And you can hear she's coming in, and the lights behind her. I added some anatomy in here, as I usually do. In this painting, I had an idea that I could get 34 figures into this thing. And I had everything here that's supposedly a requirement. I have the fellow selling ice cream in here. It's just, my whole business was to glorify him as being what would be called a deity, the lifeguard. And I surrounded him with some colors that, the colors I used are all a reflection of the underpainting that I put on the bottom. And so this gives you some idea. This is a beach scene, evidently. And so there's an activity going on. It's like a stadium without people, and then suddenly the people come in, the stadium becomes alive. So I was going to have two people under the boardwalk doing things, but there wasn't enough room here. As you see, it's a very narrow painting. And my whole idea was to glorify anatomy, but to extend it beyond its original intention, to try to make it move. And so I had this is almost like a dance here. See? And it circles and circles. Now this painting is a very sad commentary. I felt this before 9/11, and I felt that something was going to happen. This is what we'd end up with. And this is what's left of one society, a little that's become a tragic ghetto. And there we are. I simplified the anatomy as much as I could in an effort that the story was more important than anything else. Every area in here is in an effort to compose the picture so that it becomes a whole, a cohesive whole. And these are the couples at the height of their replicative empowerment, let's put it that way. And yet there's something about them. If you take a good look at their faces, they are confronted with the reality that they have to negotiate with for the rest of their lives. And so even the people in the windows there that are watching. So this is how I would like to see the world. And again, I changed the anatomy in an effort to serve its purposes. And each one of them they're with each other. It's there. And no matter who they are, they know who they belong to. It's just like people keep searching for the Mr. Right or Mr. Wrong. And if they're Mr. Right or Mr. Wrong, they might find somebody, but it's almost impossible. Are there such things as star-crossed lovers? Tell me. And I decided I would like to get back. And I made up samples, and immediately Marvel, the god that exists, accepted my work immediately. It was evident I had the talent. And I did a number of things at Marvel. I did a number of things at DC. Talk about, Jim was very, very important in a certain sense. I saw the way he was trying to handle some of the stuff he was doing for Marvel. And I figured out that maybe this is a way to go, that I might be able to actually do my own thing by working within the company, say like a sneak. But it didn't work out. Also, I got a job at Skywald, in which I was doing all of the premiere work there. But Skywald was terribly underfinanced. And the business, it's just like the early motion picture days, that everybody was trying to find a guiding light to help them. And they did for a while. But all right, so Skywald, Marvel, National, all these companies. And I did the work, Yeah, this is what I was talking about. And he says, Jack, if you leave DC, guess what? You could do anything you want. So the first thing I go over, the first day I had severed my relationship with with the Superman company. I go over there, and he says, Jack, you know what? We need a new kind of Tarzan. I said, what? He says, yeah. He says, you like Hal Fawcett. So I did 3 issues of Zangar. And But I said, but Saul, you said I could do my own things. So he gave me a chance in the black and whites. That she fell in love with my work. Oh my God. And I was going through this divorce at that time. And she just loved my stuff. Dorothy was a very sensitive young lady, really, and I never realized how hungry she was for good artwork and stuff like that. She knew my stuff, she had seen it, even Lou Fine talked about my stuff, so she was very concerned. That's what I'd say. Jack, remember to do this, and remember to do that. She was a good person. There are some people that should have never been editors. She had a heart, which is the worst thing in the world, because she picked me up and everybody else, oh, Jack Katz is going to start to put, it's going to take a year for him to do a page. Well, he draws anatomy underneath the figures. Only, she wanted me to, she stressed one area of the story or another one. The one she gave me, which I hated it, and I realized she was right eventually. It was about this girl who was taller than all the boys, and they were making fun of her. My whole aim with the First Kingdom had nothing to do with the First Kingdom as such. I wanted to mature the field. Said, maybe I'm taking a terrible gamble, but somebody's got to do it. And I felt compelled or impelled, whatever you want to say, to do this thing. I felt that I was an assignee to fulfill a mission. An atomic war had occurred. It's the resurrection of the human race and regeneration of the human race after an atomic holocaust. Everything has changed. The cartography has changed. The animals become either larger or smaller. There were ogorons at that time, hunters of man. I still draw it in my head. How I got this, how this thing happened, I don't know. I'm talking about, one day I was at Milton Caniff's home, okay? Steve Canyon. We were talking, and I said to Milt, I said, I'm hyperventilating all the time. And because everything's so important to me, what I'm putting down. I was doing the Kingdom at the time. And he says, Jack, you're not a turd. He says, you're not a mechanic. He's talking about the other artists. He said, the tide of creativity is inside of you. Everything that I put down on these pages, I've seen in my dreams. I've seen visuals. So I had to have a what would be called the penultimate. It is the penultimate, but it's also the overture, which is the First Kingdom, which altogether with the covers, I think it's 1,070 pages. And so I reviewed what goes on in the world. It's science fiction, knights in armor, exploring. I did get a Inkpot Award at the San Diego Comic-Con. And a number of people, a number of the other artists, the younger artists, began to realize I was doing something that had never been done before. I opened up an avenue of expression unlike anything that had been done. Yeah, I was invited to quite a number of conventions, and I talked, and nobody understood what I was saying then. It was Bob Plant. Yeah, but there were 4 people, and I forget the names of all of them. There were 4 people, and the minute they saw the first 7 pages of The Kingdom, by the way, I spent a rough 6 cents on each of those sheets for the art. I was taking a gamble, and we had very little money. So it worked out. This business of the comics, I used the format, and I created the first graphic novel. This was done by Bud, and Bud did a good job. He really did. He got the covers into a lot of his other publications, and Bud did an amazing job. I understand. I forget how old he is now, but he was very young at the time, and it was amazing. My former wife, Carolyn, she was without her help, and I don't know. I'll never know till this day why she put up with this lunatic. The Kingdom couldn't have been made. And we limped along. Oh, yes, she did one other thing. She checked my spelling, because I'm the worst speller in the history of the human race.
Have you met any hardcore fans of the First Kingdom?
I have, and they scare me. In fact, they all want to get my telephone number and this and that. Little do they know that I live in this fortress. You realize, how did you get up to the second terrace there? So it's a hermitage. Where do you expect from a hermit? And the Legacy, which one of the best stories I ever did about a guy who disinherits his whole family. It's a very powerful story, and which if anybody could get hold of a copy of that, I think they'd find it. It's more of a human tragedy. It's about a young man, and I decided to do this story about somebody who disinherits his entire family. Why? What happened to him? What possessed them to do a thing like that? They were trillionaires. They owned everything, airlines, you name it. And the vicissitudes of existence certainly rested on his shoulders. And it's a serious and yet a very beautiful thing. Beyond the beyond, which I wanted to do in the beginning, even before the First Kingdom. And the reason why I started even trying to put together Beyond the Beyond, because this is the most important thing I've ever done. It's great, very revelatory. It has to do with the nature of what we are in terms of our composition, in terms of our DNA, that which makes DNA. So I had to have a what would be called the penultimate. It is the penultimate, but it's also the overture. By the time I started the First Kingdom, and this is for all you kids that think you're losing time, I was 45 years old. This is a major thing, and I never thought that I'd get to do the Beyond the Beyond. And then by the time I got here, and I said, maybe I'll take a chance anyway. I guess 3 or 4 years, that's what it came to. It's only 500 pages. And I revised it many, many times as I was doing it. Every time I'd write out a page, when I put it on the artboard, it didn't look right to me, so I had to change it. I'm constantly in a state of redacting or editing, whatever you want to call it. It's a work that had to be done. I'm an assignee. I was given a mission, and that's what I did. I didn't argue with God. I guess I was 12. Yeah, I was 12 years old. And I had to put it on the counter, and then I did the First Kingdom. Here are the first 19 pages. Now I want to explain who this guy is and who I'm talking to. 450,000 years before the birth of Abraham, there were the hologists. There they are. And they knew that an event took place in which split the animate and the inanimate. I was fortunate enough to pick up a number of books at the library when I was very young who gave chapter and verse about this. They were perplexed at the fact that that this event separated us to a point where we can't. It's like two halves of something that should be part of a whole. So, and I'm acting as the fulcrum, between the yin and yang, or the positive and negative. Being 91 is interesting. During my lifetime, I had 17 doctors telling me I was doing the wrong thing. Every one of them is now dead. They wanted me to do what they told me they should do because they were doing it. And being 91 and having as much energy as I do without eating sometimes for 2 or 3 days or not sleeping for 3 or 4 days, it all depends on what you're composed with. The inventory of my life includes many interims, many interludes. People that I've known for years have disappeared. Everyone I've known is dead now, in the really far past. So people do disappear, and yet they come in and out of my life. The memories of these people are alive. Memory can never be destroyed, no matter how hard you try.